Hello, welcome to Diamond Effect Podcast episode 212. A week ago, I led 10x Expansion Retreat, my very first in person event, which was an intimate event for my clients and some of my past clients. And I want to share with you some lessons that I've learned through organizing this event and some reflections that I have a week after the event. Before I share with you some specific lessons and reflections in specific areas of the event, I wanted to say it was a great and amazing day. I had the perfect group of women entrepreneurs whom I already knew because they're my current clients or my former client. I have a relationship and connection with them, which I thought for the first time was actually a great thing because it made me less nervous about the event. So I could focus just on delivering value and use a bit of nervousness, but I had to channel it to be focused and do my best. And the way it fell was just perfect. The universe wanted everybody to have a great experience. The weather, the venue, the flow of the day worked really well, which then led to big breakthroughs, aha moments, some great deep conversations between all of us. And the participants were so supportive of each other. Some of them knew each other, but some of them didn't. So seeing them interact and support each other and challenge each other was amazing. And the magic about the events, they're really good, that give you breakthroughs, like your energy is renewed, you're motivated in your business so much more than when you came in. So I already know that less than a week later, my clients are already taking action and on the ideas that came from this event. As I mentioned, it's the first in-person event I've ever organized from the beginning to an end myself. And it wasn't fully planned in a way that I didn't have that in my strategic plan of 2025 to organize such an event when I did that plan last year. I remember last year working on my long-term vision. I have put organizing retreats and events that are aligned with what I do, my mission, but also my love for nature and growing sustainably and self-development. So that long-term vision was there, but in my mind, those events were maybe a few years away, and I was thinking of creating like big events with a lot of people, which I'm glad that didn't work that way. So I didn't have it in the plan in 2025. However, one of my clients, my current clients in Diamond Effect Group, was coming to Canada to visit her family from Dubai, where she now lives and operates her business. And she suggested that we should do a Maggie Day. We should meet up and maybe do some coaching in person. So I took that idea and decided to run with it. And it was relatively last minute where we really thought through it and decided and organized everything, or I organized everything within a couple of months, maybe even less. I'm so grateful I took this opportunity to run this event on a small scale because I can't even imagine how difficult it would be to organize a large event when you've never done something like that before. So this event taught me a lot of great lessons of how to go about it if I ever want to continue and grow those events for the years to come. So let's start with my reflections and lessons, and I categorize them in 5 groups. First being theme, then the venue, then food, then flow of the day, agenda, and then vendors. So let's start with the theme. I loved the theme, and picking that theme made me excited about the whole venture. Made me excited to promote it, made me excited to work on the content. Overall, of course, the theme is what attracts the perfect ideal client, right? Because if I've chosen a different theme, then maybe different people would have come or no one would have come if it wasn't a theme that was attractive to my ideal audience. The theme was 10x expansion. And this is not about doing 10x more, but about dreaming big and challenging yourself to think differently and have a different perspective to then figure out what would I need to do to achieve those big goals? Who would I have to become in order to do it? And that idea comes from a book by Dan Sullivan, 10x is easier than 2x. And the core concept of it is that if you're thinking about just doubling your business, then doing a little bit more of what's working and improving even more on it then easily gets you there. But if you would like to 10x your business, let's say, then doing more of what you're already doing is impossible, right? We usually are full in our schedules. So 10xing your actions and output, it's just not possible. Therefore, you need to think differently. You need to become a different person in order to achieve that 10x growth. And I love that concept. For myself, it's definitely something I wanted to challenge myself with as I was thinking about it. And I wanted to challenge my clients with it. So, of course, theme of the event is key. This is what primarily will attract the clients. This is what, of course, needs to be in alignment with what I want to teach, how I want to bring value to the clients. I want it to be new and fresh, something I've never done before or not in that format. There were components to the content of the day that I've taught before, but I've taught them differently. I've taught them in a different agenda, right? And challenge myself to think about other concepts that I haven't thought before, and then teach that and discuss that with my clients. I haven't decided in the future events how I'm going to change the themes, how I'm going to renew it, but that's definitely a big portion of the event. That has to be amazing because this is what attracts the right people. The second thing, the venue. And it's also a key important thing for an event. And I've attended multiple conferences, 3-day events with my own coaches, with my own mentors, where the venue made a lot of difference or contributed to the entire experience. So for the 10X retreat, I call it serendipity, how the venue came about. So when I decided to organize the retreat, I asked one of my assistants to start looking for the venue. And at first, I thought that maybe a nice hotel or a nice venue somewhere in Toronto, somewhere central where people could come would be great at first. And at the same time, it's summer, it's nice and beautiful. I love nature. And the way I envisioned the retreats when I was creating my long-term vision last year, I was thinking about places that have a lot of green, where me and participants could also go outside and indoors, which is not possible in a hotel in Toronto. So I wasn't too excited about it, but that's where at first the research led. And then just a couple of days before I was going to decide on the venue, I received a cold email from the venue that we ended up with promoting that particular property and place for retreats. And I started looking just at the website and the promotional material. I've never been there, even though it's 30 minutes away from my house. And I thought, that's it. It was just the perfect combination of what I wanted the event to be in terms of the venue. Great value for the price with food included and everything. And I said, yes, this is it. I booked the venue before I actually went and visited it, which I don't highly recommend. It turned out to be really good and perfect. I wouldn't have found anything better given the short time frame I had. But definitely, this is one lesson to check the venue before I commit and book. And what led me also to that lesson is that after I booked and committed, I did go to the venue to create some footage and check and get a feel of the place to then help me with the agenda. And I realized that the venue definitely couldn't hold more than 15 people comfortably, even though they were saying we could accommodate 20, 25. But after seeing it, I would say no more than 15. Otherwise, it would be squishy. Now, everything fell perfectly. We had just the right amount of people, everything. But for the future, wanting to grow and scale the events, this is an important thing for me because I've seen different venues and how they can affect people, how they can affect the whole experience. With the venue, it needs to be really aligned with the theme of the event. It needs to have the right price, right? Because if it's too expensive, then it elevates the price for the clients for the event, and you might be outpricing yourself for certain clients, and also makes it so much harder to make the event profitable, which already is challenging because everybody I've talked to, even my coaches and mentors, a lot of people say that it's very hard to make events profitable. They're more for giving value to the clients, and then from that, maybe and then giving you great experience, and from that creating more marketing to attract more clients to coaching or other offers that those mentors have. So the price, it's a delicate balance that is difficult and very challenging to achieve. And I realized that before just by attending events, but I also realize it even more now. So having the perfect venue, the right price, and the alignment of with the theme, and also the right size where you can accommodate people comfortably. So where you can accommodate the amount of people that are coming comfortably without being too squished. A couple of challenges that I've seen the organizers have by just attending events is that, for example, the venue was beautiful, amazing, great experience, but also very expensive, which made the event quite expensive. There were multiple days where you would have to book hotels and feed yourself, and that just elevated the cost of the whole experience. In my case, for the 10X retreat, the food was included. It was one-day event, so it definitely lowered cost for the participants. That worked well, but I know it can be challenging. Another challenge, which are the events that again I've experienced as a client, was where the venue wasn't giving the value for the price that the organizer paid, right? So maybe it was accommodating the number of people, but then the pricing versus the value offered was not in a good balance. So I know finding venues challenging, and especially when your groups start growing and you're trying to accommodate more and more people, it becomes more of a challenge. The food. Our food was delicious. It was just yummy and at the same time super healthy and nourishing, which reminded me how important it is to have great food at the event. And ideally, I would love to continue feeding my audience. To lose some opportunities when that happens, but I also gonna understand why organizers opted out from feeding the participants. So with us, we had a very healthy, nutritious snack in the morning with coffee, tea when participants were arriving, sort of getting settled and so on, which was great because, for example, even for me, morning is a very important part of my day. My brain works really well. Therefore, I need to feed it. And if I don't feed it well, then I become angry. And the last thing you want is having the participants who are having maybe sugar lows, being angry in the event because as they were arriving, they didn't have time to eat breakfast, and then you're not feeding them at all there. So I thought that was a great idea. And then we had lunch that was just delicious. savory and so tasty that it reminded me that another thing is that when you feed your clients, the experience expands to all the senses, right? So when you have the beautiful venue and you have great content, then your clients experience the visuals, the mental stimulation, the smell. Like in our venue, there was a lot of nature and flowers. So you could smell the flowers, the grass, the forest, water. It was just beautiful. But then with the food, you are adding additional sensory experience, but also taste. So you're just expanding how the clients experience the whole day. And then the last benefit of feeding your participants is that during the lunch or even the snacks and the breakfast, they can connect at a different level than when they're in the sessions and discussing things. There is relationships built. And I remember even me going to coaching conferences. The best friends that I made during those events happened not because we were in the sessions together, we connected during the meals or events outside of it. So it just adds a level of experience and additional value for connection and relationship building for the participants. The fourth area is agenda and the flow of the day. And that in itself is a challenge. When I was preparing the content and thinking how I'd like the day to flow, what I loved with the idea of starting with a meditation and a quick grounding practice and introductions, this allowed us to move from pedaling and eating to really then be grounded and focused to start the day because it was not just health and wellness retreat, it was a retreat for personal development that required focus, that required reflection, that required being vulnerable. So introducing the participants to each other to create that initial connection, create safety, and then doing a quiet grounding practice meditation, not too long, just made that even deeper. But I remember when I was creating the content, what I would teach when the participants would have breaks for self reflection or maybe conversations and so on, I was worried that I didn't have enough, that we would be done halfway through and I wouldn't know what to do. And it turns out that I had to, towards the end, rush my content to ensure that I would finish everything in time because some participants could not stay longer, even though I could, or maybe some others could. So I wanted to finish within the timeline that I provided. And I found that is definitely not only my challenge. Again, in many events that I participated, often we would go over time and then rush through the content just because it's hard to gauge the part where I'm speaking, I'm teaching. It's hard to gauge the level of participation that will end up being during the event, how long the conversations between the participants will be. You don't want to interrupt that when the participants support each other, when they're vulnerable, when they're sharing. You want to give them ample time to do that. You don't want to interrupt that because that just breaks the energy. And so that is hard. So definitely my lesson from it, less is better and more. And maybe in the future, having the core light kind of content and then maybe additional things just in case things go faster than I thought would be a good improvement from how I structured the day. But overall, this time we definitely went through everything. We had ample time to do conversations and reflections, but there were moments where I had to rush and rethink, especially towards the end, how I would run that part. The last part is vendors. Because this event was small and it was my first one, I, let's say, organized it by myself with the help of an assistant. and then manage the small amount of vendors that I had myself, which wasn't a lot. I believe in simplicity to keep things as simple as possible, especially the first time you're trying something, to make it as easy as possible for you to go through till the end, to execute as well as you can with the resources that you have. I'm glad I did that because I definitely see the value of the event planners and them dealing with the whole organization and the vendors event. If I'm going to make it bigger and then potentially have more vendors to manage, event planner will be amazing because that's not something that I fully enjoy. I can do it if I have to, but it's not my passion. My passion is to create a content and an agenda and think about my clients and give them reflections and those things rather than the little details of maybe, how the chairs should be set up, what else do they need, what questions to ask the vendors about their way of working or thinking through that. So that is one of the biggest lessons in terms of vendor management and managing the vendor organization, event organization outside of what I need to prepare as the facilitator. Now, the good part about it is that for this event, 10X, I had very limited vendors. They were great people. We're really connected. We've met multiple times, discussed things, the do's and don'ts, but there were little things that slipped that came out during the event that definitely, now that I know about them, I'll know for the future. I don't think if those could have been prevented ahead of time, just because not having organized events before, I wouldn't have known to ask those things ahead of time. So experience makes a master. When you do things over and over, you're definitely hiring an event planner. They have experience that helps you prepare even better. That also shows how communication is key. And even though you think you communicate enough, it's usually not enough. You need to over communicate. Do not assume. Ask questions. Go through the flow of the day. Ask, what about this? What am I missing? What about this? So that's a lesson for me, which then also brings me to the conclusion that, of course, if I'm going to do another event, hopefully next year or a couple of years, giving myself a little bit more time, has had a month and a half to organize it, allows you to have more of those discussions, have more of those meetings, think through more details. But regardless of that, event was amazing. It went really well. Majority, 99% of the things were great. There was little things that came up that we dealt with in the moment, but then we know for the future how to improve on them or avoid certain things or be more prepared for certain things. Overall, I'm really glad that I did it. And that reminds me of the power of having a long term vision for your business and short term plan. Having a long term vision for a business, that dream, and really being clear on what it is allows you to be open to the opportunities that you didn't think maybe would happen in your yearly strategic planning, but then grab onto them because you know that they're a part of your long-term vision. And that's exactly what happened with this event. I'm so grateful that it did happen, that I jumped on the wagon, I organized it. I'm so grateful to all the clients that came and trusted me with the first event ever. I'm so grateful for their participation and support of each other, and grateful for the vendors that helped me make this event amazing and possible. If you have any questions or if you have some fun stories from your own events that you might have organized or the lessons that you learned, I would love for you to reach out and share because I love to learn from others. So thank you for listening.